venomous air around him that said he'd rather gut someone than talk to them. Of course, a lot of folks said that about her, too, but she at least tried to mitigate it. He, on the other hand, flaunted it like a prized trophy. "Tell your pimple that I don't have his money." Sicarius arched a brow at her and the nonchalant boredom in her tone. He glanced around the crowded bar, knowing as well as she did that if he shot or beat her in here, no one would notice or care, which was one of the reasons she liked this place so much. "You're really going to make me do this?" "I'm not making you do anything, but I don't have the money. So if you're willing to get bloody, so am I." He let out a tired sigh before he took a step forward. Eve braced herself and moved her hand to her blaster under the table. Yet before he could reach her, a giant shadow blocked his path. "There a problem?" Sicarius tensed as he sized up the new threat. So did Eve, not just because she wasn't expecting anyone to intervene on her behalf, but because of who was intervening. A League assassin. What the hell? Even taller than Sicarius, who towered over most, the assassin was fierce. And gorgeous. All masculine power and lethal grace, like the finely honed killing machine they'd trained him to be. Yet for all that threat, Sicarius didn't back down. "This is private business. Has nothing to do with the League." "Really?" Sicarius nodded. "Really?" The assassin clicked his teeth. "See, I'm afraid I'm going to have to differ with you about that, being that you're a hired thug for Rufus Saiter." Eve wasn't sure which of them was the most shocked by his words, mostly because it was true. How had the assassin known that? Why would he care? "I'm not doing anything wrong. Just collecting a legal debt for a loan the lady took out." The assassin gave him a cold grin. "You're not, but your boss is doing all kinds of things that are questionable. So let me tell you how this is going to end. You're going to walk out of here and leave Zarana Erixour alone. Then you're going to make a call and tell Saiter that he will forgive her all debts, or else her League friend will make sure the Prime Commander gets a file with enough dirty deeds to see to it that your boss isn't accorded a trial. Just a rather unpleasant execution. Understood?" She saw his urge to argue, but Sicarius knew what she did. The League was law, and given that this assassin was dressed all in black, he was one of their highest-ranking members. No one argued with their high command. No one. So he inclined his head respectfully. "Understood." And with that, Sicarius headed for the exit. Eve was stunned by what had just happened, and her mind kept repeating one thing. This was a League assassin. They killed people, for any reason they wanted, real or made up. There was nothing anyone could do. To draw on them was a death sentence. They made the law, and they were deployed to annihilate whatever target their bosses fixated on. Man, woman, child, varmint. Didn't matter. They had no choice and no say. Kill or be killed. Good deeds were as non-existent to them as common sense to the average person on the street. "Why would you help me?" He shrugged nonchalantly. "I don't like people abusing their power over others." "But you work for the League. That was how they ran their business and their government." "I was conscripted into the League. There's a big difference." "True. The only way out for an assassin was death. The League never allowed them to leave. They owned them." "Still, you work for the bad guys." "Yeah, I do." And with that, he headed for the exit. Eve mentally kicked herself for her stupidity and her rudeness. Rising from her seat, she caught up to him.